Hi everybody, Dr. K here. I'm here to talk to you this week about step 3 of your Create a Center project, which is your budget. I personally think this is probably the most difficult step of the whole process. There's a lot you need to know before you can even start this budget. So the first thing you need to do are complete the 2 web reviews for this week. Do those first and then complete the 2 class activities for this week. The web reviews will have you looking at salary.com and also the labor department to find out what are the median and average salaries for preschool teachers, assistant teachers, cooks, and directors. So you need to start out by figuring out what is the average out there right now that teachers are being paid. So you're going to get that information with Web 5.1. And then in your class activities, you're going to figure out how many teachers you actually need for your center. You can read in your textbook talks about how to figure out what they call FTEs, which are full-time equivalents. Look on, well, it's in the middle of chapter 5. Give that a look over. But also what you need to do is really to sit down and figure out how many teachers you're going to need for each room. So for this center, I want you to have at least 1 infant room, 1 toddler room, 1 3-year-old room, 1 4-year-old room, and 1 5-year-old room. Now, you're going to need to, first of all, go back to class activity 3 and figure out what is the ratio. And we're using New York State ratios here, not the ones listed in the book. Those are the dream ratios. We're going to use the realistic ones from New York. So what are the ratios you need? For example, in an infant room, the ratio in New York is 1 to 4. So if you're going to have 8 babies in that classroom, you need 2 teachers in that room at all times. So that's what you have to figure out. How many kids are you hoping for in each classroom? And then you'll be able to figure out how many teachers using the ratios you'll have for each of those 5 classrooms. And then we're going to assume that this center is open for 11 hours a day. That's a typical center. Opens at 7 a.m., closes at 6 p.m. If you have those hours, then how many hours in a week is that? That's 55 hours a week. Well, people can't work 55 hours a week. People can work 40 hours a week. So there's going to be some overlap needed there, right? You've got 15 hours that you're going to have to probably hire some part-time people to be closers at the end of the day or openers at the beginning of the day. Fill-ins, substitutes, floaters. Floaters might be good to cover lunch breaks and breaks. And that labor department site back on the webs will also tell you what are the rules for breaks. So you need to know all of that before you even think about starting this. Your class activities this week will have you create a schedule for 1 week, filling in all these classrooms. Then you're going to know, okay, I need this many teachers, this many assistants, etc. Once you know all of that, you're going to plug in the numbers that you got from the labor department for salaries. And your second class activity will have you figure out the salary cost for each one of those staff members. And now we're ready to start step 3, your budget, because now you've got your personnel all figured out, and that's your really 70% of your budget is the people that you pay who work for you. So that will be your personnel line. And then you also have to figure out benefits. So that's Social Security payments, unemployment insurance, workman's comp, and health insurance. And that's actually just an easy figure to put in. You take the total salary and you multiply it by 0.28 or 28%. You figure 28% of a person's salary is really what benefits are coming to. Now, I'm reading your book says 25%. I think that is way too low, having owned a business. 28% is the minimum low, and it can go as high as 32% depending on what kind of a health insurance plan you give. So we're going to figure the low end, use 28% as your number. Once you multiply your salaries by 28%, you will have that number that also goes into your budget. Now, to get a good example of a budget, get out your book and look at the Director's Resource 5.1, which is at the end of Chapter 5. This is a sample operating budget. You've got your income at the top, and then you've got your expenses at the bottom. And the two should pretty much add up. If they don't, if they go over, you have a profit. If they go under, you have a loss. So the easiest thing to do when you make this budget, try to make it match. Make your income match your outcome, and then you're all okay. But if it doesn't, then you're going to have to explain why it didn't. So probably easiest way is to do that. So figuring out your salaries and everything, you got to figure out how much is coming in, how much is going out. How much is coming in, you're also going to have to figure out what you're going to charge for tuition. So start thinking about that. There are some samples in here. Think about the market rate right now in the capital districts, probably between 120, 140 a week for a student. You could call a couple of centers, find out what they're charging. That's what real people do to figure out the real amounts. And then figure those numbers for your income. And then your expenses. Use this as an example to try to figure that out. You'll have to figure out where you're going to rent, how much your rent's going to be. And as you type this up, I want an explanation of that. So if you budget $31,000 a year for rent, I want to know, well, how much is that actually? What are you paying per month for the room or the building or whatever it is? So give me some little details as you also come up with this budget. You're going to explain it in a narrative as well, where you came up with those numbers. All right, so this is a really, really tricky, difficult one. Make sure you do the web and the class activities before you even attempt to start this. That'll give you a lot of numbers to start out with. And then read the chapters, chapter 5 and 6. That will help you to figure out where you're going to get the money and how you're going to budget it all out, and then start working out your budget. If you're in the fall or the spring semester regular course, this is due in 2 weeks. You have 2 whole weeks to work on this. You're going to send me in your rough draft so I can look it over for this step 3. If you're in the summer class, check the packet for the due date. It's probably due at the end of this week for summer class. So that's it for this week. A lot of work. So enjoy figuring out your numbers, and you'll see how really tricky this actually is to figure out how many people do I need, what's their schedule going to be like, and then how much am I going to pay them. So I think you'll really learn a lot here about some real life things that you'll need to do when you do open up your own center. Send me a quick email if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. I will see you all online.